Bayhackle Sports presents The Delano Little Show.
Welcome back to another edition of Bayhackle Sports, The Delano Little Show. I'm Delano Little, and you are Danny Morrison. It's so good to see you again. We haven't seen each other in quite some time now, all right?
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I didn't know exactly how to introduce you, as I could have gone the former way and said Danny Morrison, former Wofford athletic director. Danny Morrison, former Texas Tech athletic director. You just correct me as I go along with this. I think you get what I say.
TCU, actually.
See, I knew TCU. You could also say sports commissioner for the Southern Conference, former president of the Carolina Panthers. I could go on and on. I mean, you're pretty lazy, it seems like, in your whole life, for goodness sake. Which one sticks out to you the most, or are all of them so important to you?
Well, I've been fortunate. I've actually loved every job I've ever had. I started off as a high school basketball coach, also taught geometry, and then I coached at Elon for 5 years, and then I went back to an alma mater, Wofford, and as the AD, and so from there to the Southern Conference, TCU and the Panthers, and now teaching a couple of classes at the University of South Carolina and working with the Charlotte Sports Foundation. So it's all been great. I've loved it all. Okay,
well, we're going to go through a lot of that and then kind of talk more in depth about that. But first of all, let's go back to your hometown, Burlington, North Carolina. I asked you the question, what high school you went to, because I knew Burlington Cummings back in the day, because when I first got here and I was working at another station, and basically I was sent to cover the high school championship game, and I watched Burlington Cummings way back in 1990, and they had a quarterback. His name was Donnie. I can't remember his last name, but they looked so much better than the other team. And I was like, this is like a little dynasty going on here. And I watched them. I remember watching them at Chapel Hill. That whole area is known for sports, though, because you played high school ball there at a different school, correct?
I played at Burlington Williams. At the time, it was the only high school in Burlington. So it was a great high school. Couldn't have had a better high school experience. We had a really good basketball team. We had a great coach, and we had the best big man in the country when I was a senior, a guy named Jeff Crompton, who ended up going to the University of North Carolina, played for Dean Smith, and then went on and played in the NBA for the Milwaukee Bucks. But he was really good as a sophomore. We had a great rivalry with Greensboro Grimsley, who was terrific at that time as well. And so I remember all those experiences fondly. And then I had the good fortune to go back there after graduating from Wofford, and then that's where I coached basketball and also taught geometry.
Get out of here, but you also played basketball too. And you don't talk about yourself about how good you were. I'm just going to guess, because I didn't want to ask you before. I would see you would be a scrappy point guard. Was that right?
Well, scrappy would be the right word. That's usually a way of saying a not very good point guard.
No, that's not true. No.
So I did get accused of being scrappy, but it was fun. We had a great group of guys, great fun, and really a good experience.
Well, you're playing basketball in high school, and do you have aspirations? I know you're probably not thinking at that time to become a very big sports executive like you are. I wouldn't imagine that, but you probably were thinking basketball. Did you want to play somewhere else? And you ended up going to Wofford, correct? And tell me how that all went.
Well, it's a strange story, actually. I was going to Wake Forest. I was going to try to walk on there. I'd already paid my room deposit, already had my roommate. And then I get a letter late. It was in late spring, actually. I get a letter from Wofford, the coach, invited me to come down to try out. I knew it was a good school, so I drive the family Volkswagen by myself to Spartanburg, and we try out. Coach was smart enough not to give me a scholarship, but he did offer me the opportunity to come, said I'd have a chance to earn one, and so that's how I ended up at Wofford. Strange how that works out.
And you were able to get a scholarship, right?
Well, I got some scholarship money. I wasn't very good, but no, I did get some scholarship money, but that wasn't real. I mean, the main thing was just to have the experience of playing for 4 years, and again, some great teammates, a great school, and funny how things worked out. It was a great fit for me personally.
Yeah. Now you fast forward now to what you've seen over the years as sports has grown and the college dollars have increased, and the big question now with using the image and the likeness of, or whatever the case may be. What would you say to somebody? It's a little bit of a deeper question than I wanted to necessarily get into, but what would you say to somebody who said, big time athletes get scholarship money and basically they get a free education? So is that not enough to satisfy what they do for the schools or the universities when you take into account that other people that may not have that kind of talent to play at football level or basketball, they come out with a lot of debt? And you see people still complaining after 4 or 5 years, I'm still paying off college debt. So is that enough, or where do you fall on that whole situation?
Well, the economics have changed so dramatically in college athletics over the years. I still think the scholarship is very valuable. If you think about it, at a TCU, I don't know what the cost there now is, but it's probably like $70,000 a year to go to TCU. And then if you get cost of attendance, and then you get a Pell Grant money, and then you have, that's all after tax. So if you had to do pre-tax, you're over $100 and some thousand. So that's pretty good for an 18-year-old. But I also get what's happened in college athletics, and as salaries for coaches and administrators, and the television revenue and all the other things that come into play. So name, image, and likeness will probably level out at some point. It's the kind of the wild, wild west right now. Not a lot of guardrails around it. But somebody like Zion Williamson, absolutely. Name, image, and likeness. People knew Zion, knew his value. I have often said, though, in the Olympic model, it's really pretty pure name, image, and likeness. Right. If you're the 16th best pole vaulter in the world, that's pretty good. 16th best pole vaulter. You're probably not going to be getting any name, image, and likeness money. And so the 16th best offensive lineman at school X probably is not, in a pure sense, going to be getting name, image, and likeness dollars. So it's turned into somewhat, as people worried about, is the recruiting element that makes it different than something like the Olympics.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. You now you're done with college. You go back to Wofford to be the first full-time athletic director. Right?
That's right.
And you do that for quite a few years, right? 12
Yeah,
years?
that was a hard decision. I'd been coaching at Elon for 5 years, and back then you did a little bit of everything. So I went there as assistant basketball coach, but I was also the tennis coach, taught in the math department.
You drove the bus too. You did.
I did drive the van now,
okay,
for sure. And then I was also assistant AD. But so I had the opportunity to go back to Wofford in 1985 as either the basketball coach or the AD, which was really the hardest decision I ever had to make. And I decided to go the AD route. Worked out good for Wofford. We got a better basketball coach, a guy named Richard Johnson, who's still there. He's the AD now. And his assistant for 15 or 16 years was Mike Young. And then Mike Young was the head coach for 15 or 16 years before going to Virginia Tech. And of course, 2 years ago, he was ACC Coach of the Year. And this past year, they win the ACC championship. So I had a very good run at Wofford. It couldn't have come at a better time. We made some pretty bold moves at the time. We say all the time that risk and progress are complementary variables.
Yes.
And we took a bunch of risk. We were in NAIA. We moved into the NCAA Division II when nobody else other than the CIAA schools in North Carolina, no other schools in North or South Carolina were Division II. So we took that risk. Then we made the risk of, here's this small liberal arts college, and we decided to go Division I and Division I AA in football. Then we got fortunate. We got into the Southern Conference, and it worked out well. We were so young. All of us grew up together. When I went there in '85, I was like I was 31. We hired Richard Johnson, who was 31. We hired, then a couple years later, we hired this great football coach named Mike Ayers, who was there for 30 years, and incredible job that he did.
He did it with the triple option too, right?
He did it with your triple option.
Yeah, because I asked you earlier, I said, I heard there was a rumor that Georgia Southern went and showed Wofford how to run a triple option. And then I watched one day and Wofford beat Georgia Southern. I was at home on watching TV and I was like, why do we show them the triple option? How do we do that? Why do we And you said that probably wasn't true. You guys had already been running that triple option, but did it to perfection. And that triple option is something.
Oh, it's
when it's run well.
I love the triple option, and there's so much thought that goes in behind it, and all the intricacies of how do you block, who do you block, and I think it's high risk offense. People don't give it enough credit because you're not throwing a forward pass, but you're throwing those pitches out there that can be troublesome as well.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
I love the triple option. It was fun to watch, and Mike Ayers. You get lucky a lot in life.
Yes.
And to hit on Mike Ayers and Richard Johnson and Mike Young and just all the other people.
You had a lot to do that.
No, not really. It really comes down, we got really good people. And when you got people that work together and have harmony and you don't get egos involved, it's pretty remarkable what can happen out of all that.
All right, so we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about everything that you've done since then, because you've got such a long career. It's really very impressive, and I just want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk with you some more. Danny Morrison.
Thank you very much.
We're back here with Danny Morrison on Bay Aqua Sports, the Delano Little Show. Thank you again for being with us. We had just finished talking about your run as athletic director at Wofford and how great that was, but that may have never come about had it not been for your freshman year. And you went on to meet somebody pretty famous, a guy named Jerry Richardson. I know that's a great story for you.
Well, you just never know when you're going to cross paths with somebody. So my freshman year, first semester at Wofford, I walk into my Western Civilization class, and I have a professor named Joe Lassane, who only taught one class, dean of the college, and taught one class. And I had him for the fall semester and the spring semester. The very next year, he gets named president. And Paul Harden, who had been our president, and you remember that name,
yes.
He went to SMU, and then he ended up being the chancellor at the University of North Carolina. So this guy named Joe Lassane, who was 33 years old at the time, becomes the president, stays there, does an amazing job as the president for some 28 years, and could have gone bigger, better. He just loved the place. He was an amazing leader, great encourager, really believed, as I said earlier, risk and progress, complementary variables. And so anyway, so here's a guy I meet, and then 10 years later, he offers me the AD job or the basketball job at Wofford. So it was pretty neat to know the president during my 4 years at Wofford, but it wasn't like, we were buddies, but he was great.
Right.
And then here's another interesting story. In Thanksgiving of that year, we were the only kids on campus, the basketball players were. So there was this iconic businessman in town, probably at the time 35 years old. Everybody wanted to work at this place called Spartan Foods.
Right.
And it started with one Hardee's, and had grown it and was already an amazingly successful businessman. Of course, the name Jerry Richardson. And he and Mrs. Richardson on Thanksgiving, I can't imagine this at 35 years old thinking like this. They wanted all these rogue basketball players to have a family experience at Thanksgiving. So they invited us to come to their house to have Thanksgiving dinner with their 3 children. And what a message that sent to all of us, that somebody cared enough on a Thanksgiving to make sure we were having a family experience.
Wow. And of course, Jerry Richardson goes on to own the Carolina Panthers. And you, in that relationship with him, were able to let him be able to come and host his training camp in Spartanburg, correct, at Wofford? And how did that?
Well, there's a good story about that. And I didn't know him well as a student at Wofford. He was working all the time. He may get to a game or two a year. Of course, we knew when he was there because he was such a revered person. And of course, he's got good size.
Yeah,
too.
he's larger than life.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So that was really special when he would come to the games. But when I went back in '85 as the AD, he was on the board of trustees, so I got to know him better during that time. And he sent me a note in 1987, handwritten note, as you know how he always did handwritten notes. The note was, Danny, confidential, going after an NFL team for the Carolinas. So that was 1987.
Right.
So I wrote him back and I said, when you get your team, not if, when you get your team, we want to be in a position to host a training camp. So we started working and we researched every training camp in America. We knew kind of what we needed to do. And I don't think Mr. Richardson thought it would take 6 years, but that October 26, 1993, the announcement was made. We started immediately working to put the plan in progress to attract a training camp. We knew that we had to have a good facilities and make sure it was, because we were competing with other places. But we did think that if everything was equal, we might get the nod. So at any rate, it worked out great. Training camp was fabulous. It was good for the Panthers. It was good for Wofford. And it was almost like old home week every year when they came.
It was top notch. I go down there every year for many, many years. So, and then now, fast forward to you becoming the president of the Carolina Panthers, and was that something you never would have imagined?
Well, I had never thought about professional sports. I was at TCU. I'd gone there in 2005. It was really our first move out of the Carolinas. And Texas people are great. I thought they may be, stiff arm you a little bit. You're not from here, boy.
Yes.
So
they're the kind of people make you think Texas Tech is Texas Christian.
So they're actually the complete opposite. They wrap their arms around you.
Okay.
They want you to love Texas as much as they love Texas.
Gotcha.
And so we had a wonderful experience at TCU. The chancellors, who's still there, by the way, Victor Boschini, one of the top, if not the top chancellor in all of America, done an amazing job there. So go there in 2005. They treated us like gold in Fort Worth. Things were going well. Football was playing really well. Gary Patterson, as you know, great coach. And so things were going really well. I thought that was our last job. I still think it's one of the top AD jobs in the country.
Yes.
And so that was it. We were going to finish our careers there, and it was fun. We had it's a great school, great environment. And so in 2009, I guess it was around Labor Day weekend, sometime around Labor Day weekend, Mr. Richardson calls, says unique opportunity, and offers me the opportunity to come to the Carolina Panthers as the president. And so that was an exciting time. Yeah. It was difficult to leave the college ranks.
What were your emotions like? What were your emotions like when he,
Well, first of all, high regard for him and all that he had done at Spartan Foods and how he went after bringing people forget all that was not a slam dunk when he was going after an NFL team for the Carolinas. In fact, most would say no chance. And through his tenacity and work and bringing it to the Carolinas and specifically to Charlotte, and then having it anchor an end of town where now everything's grown to it like everybody thought would happen over time. It was just great vision on his part, great tenacity. And so I really enjoyed my NFL experience. It was
you almost got a Super Bowl.
Well, that's the one thing, because we really had a great team that year, and we had such outstanding people. 17 games in a row. People forget about that.
Yes.
3 at the end of the 14 season and 14 in a row in the 15 season, which is the longest winning streak in NFC. Dolphins have it on the AFC side. But it was a great run. What's different in NFL than other professional sports, it's not 4 out of 7. It's 1.
Yes.
And just one of those days out in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But an amazing year. That group with so many terrific people that were also great football players and fun to be around. That was, that was a team. That was a fun team.
Yeah, I was out there in San Francisco too, watching, and they I felt like they had the chance to win that game, and it's just one of those things where, like you said, it's one game. If they play them 2 or 3 more times, the Panthers probably win 2 or 3 of those.
Well, I'm biased, but I would agree with you on that.
Yes.
And but it doesn't take away from, 17 games in a row in the NFL. It's unheard of.
Yes.
It just doesn't happen.
Well, it happened under your watch.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with it, but
you're very humble. I know you are.
Ron Rivera did a great job, and then we had 2 really good GMs in Marty Herney and Dave Gettleman.
Yes.
And all the pieces were together. We had such great leadership on that team. From Thomas Davis to Luke Kuechly to Greg Olson to Ryan Khalil to Cam to Jonathan Stewart.
Team.
It was in great people. High quality people. And they had fun. That's what I liked about it. It was a good ride.
Well, yes, it was. Well, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about your family life and what you're doing now and what you're doing for the whole Charlotte area and everybody that you're working with. So we'll be right back here. Bay Echo Sports, the Delano Little Show.
Great, thanks.
Welcome back to the Bay Echo Sports Delano Little Show. Good to have Danny Morrison here with us, spending a little time, and we appreciate you very much. Okay, so I usually don't use a pad for anything. I usually try to remember. I'm just going to pull this on just real quick, just to say that right now you're doing 2 things. Like I said, you're really lazy. You're the professor of practice in the Department of Sports and Entertainment at the University of South Carolina. What in the world does that mean?
That means I teach 2 classes at the University of South Carolina in their sports and entertainment.
Okay, and what do people learn in the class?
It's the largest program in the country for undergrads, and then it's got a really good graduate program as well. You may know the name Susan O'Malley, who was the first female president in pro sports at both the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals for the NHL. So she teaches as well, and so we got a great combination of people that have been in the field from an experience standpoint, practical standpoint, but we have some amazing professors who do research and have just really taken the program to a different level at the University of South Carolina. So I'm having fun with it. It keeps you current. I love working with the young students. It's a way to give back, and they keep you on your toes too.
I can imagine.
And it's a nice fertile recruiting ground for us too, because I get to see firsthand some really outstanding students, and we've been able to recruit some of those to the Charlotte Sports Foundation.
Yes, and that's where I was going next, the Charlotte Sports Foundation. You're the executive director, and how long have you been doing that now, and how did that all come about, and what are you guys all about?
It's been about 2.5 years. In 2017, after the Panthers, we went to the beach. So we were living at Sullivan's Island. I was doing a little bit of consulting, teaching a couple of days a week in Columbia at the University of South Carolina. So people thought I might go crazy. I didn't go crazy 1 second. I stayed busy doing what I wanted to do. It's kind of nice to control your own schedule. And then I was on the board of the Charlotte Sports Foundation when I was with the Panthers. And we had a terrific executive director, a guy named Will Webb, who you know. And Will got Parkinson's, so they asked me if I'd be interested in doing the Charlotte Sports Foundation. I knew we had a great staff, and so it's been fun. We got an incredibly talented young staff, and it's been fun working with them as we continue to try to bring high-profile events to Charlotte that have economic impact and add to the quality of life.
About $100 million last year, correct? Is that what I heard?
It was about $95 million. Of course, we had the Clemson-Georgia game was fabulous. We got blessed with great weather. I I never remember it being 85 and no humidity around Labor Day weekend for 3 or 4 straight days.
What is that all about, right?
Yeah, so that worked out good. And we had App State and East Carolina on Thursday night, and then come back with Clemson, Georgia, and game day here at Romeo Bearden Park on Saturday morning. And so that worked out well. And then, of course, the ACC championship game. And then we got a great matchup for the Duke's Mayo Bowl with North Carolina and South Carolina. And we couldn't have a better title partner than Duke's Mayo. We've had fun with that. They're up actually for Sponsor of the Year by the Sports Business Journal. So well-deserved. Hopefully they'll win it. But just being in the company with other people that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising, it speaks to execution of our staff and the Duke's Mayo people and all of our social media. That's been fantastic. So again, we got a great staff. And now this coming year, we've got the HBCU matchup for Labor Day weekend that we're excited about. 100th anniversary of the North Carolina Central and North Carolina A&T game.
Right.
And we got ACC championship game again. And then we're starting the Jumpman Invitational, which we think will be the premier regular season basketball event in the country.
Wow. So Spectrum Center, obviously.
Going to be at the Spectrum Center. Fred Whitfield and their whole staff been tremendous to work with. And this all started with a conversation with Joe Castiglione, who's the AD at Oklahoma, as you know. He was on the NCAA basketball committee, and there was a regional in Columbia. I guess it was 2019. We'd gone out to dinner, and Joe says, you know what would be really cool? There are only 4 Jordan brand teams in the country for football and basketball: North Carolina, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Florida. Said, what if we had those 4 for a doubleheader? Wow. And so we've been working on that for the last couple of years. It's come to fruition. We're going to have men and women. And it's December 2021. We think that's going to be really a signature legacy event. The Jordan brand
2022,
this year.
This year, okay.
December 20 and 21 of 2022.
Gotcha.
So a couple of weeks ago, we had 8 people from the Jordan brand that came from Portland just to continue the planning. So they're engaged. They want to make it the premier event. So this should be really exciting for Charlotte.
Well, from everybody in Uptown, they have businesses like the Public House Restaurant right here.
Exactly.
We appreciate you guys for all you do, because you're helping out the community, you're helping out people, you're helping out businesses. So,
well, we got the bowl game this year. It's a Big Ten ACC matchup. Every other year, ACC plays the SEC, and then the following year they play the Big Ten. So this is an ACC Big Ten matchup. It was fun having Wisconsin here a couple of years ago, playing Wake Forest. Unfortunately, that was during the COVID time, so we couldn't have fans. But to have some of these iconic Big Ten teams that have never played in Charlotte come to Charlotte, we think is great. And we're in the process of bidding for the Army-Navy game.
Okay, I did hear about that. How's that going?
We've made the first cut, so they'll be having a site visit sometime in the next month to Charlotte, and then there'll be decision sometime late spring, early summer. There's 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. So we're bidding for one of those years, any of the 5 years.
And that's a major event.
It's a bucket list.
Yes, that is.
I'd never been. And so Will Pitts and Katie Koppenhaver and I went up to MetLife this year. It's usually in Philly, as you know.
Right.
And it darts out every now and then to New York or Baltimore. Never been played in the South. And so it was a really special experience. They have a big gala with all the Army-Navy folks on the Friday night beforehand. And then just the pageantry and the excitement of an Army-Navy game. We were on the field watching it all unfold, and it's really, really special. Yeah. And it certainly would be great to have in the Carolinas with the military presence we have on the respective bases, and just the love of the military in the Carolinas. And of course, you got your father,
My father was
very
in the
much
military, yes,
yeah.
and my brothers were too as well. I was the only one that didn't go military because I was playing college football, but that's you know.
And you played it well too.
Well, you're very kind, and we appreciate everybody that's been in the military.
So how many national championships did you win?
You know, I had 2 at Georgia Southern, and we went on to win 4 more. So we call it six flags over Georgia, 6 rings over Georgia.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah.
So you won 2 during your time.
I won 2 in 1985 and 86. Yeah. And I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but I'm going to get this last question in before we call it quits for today. The Wofford Hall of Fame, what did that mean to you?
Well, let me tell you what my buddies say. They always correct it. They always say, you didn't get in for your athletic. You got in because you were the AD, which is the truth.
Well, you're pretty darn good one.
So I got it was nice to get in as the AD, but my teammates, they will not let me. If it comes up, they always correct it with an addendum. Yeah. That was for administration, not for his play.
You don't have to listen to them. Well, Danny Morrison, thank you so much for being with us, and continued success with the Charlotte Sports Foundation and all that you're doing, and teaching as well in South Carolina. We appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Great. Thanks for having me. Always great being with you.
Thank you. That's going to do it for Bay Hackle Sports, the Delano Little Show. We hope to see you next time.